So hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about food waste. What is food waste? Um, and start by talking about just the foods that we eat in general. So, what are some of your favorite foods? Anything can be at your birthday, a cupcake, during the holidays, a sweet potato pie, or when you're not feeling well, maybe you'd make yourself, or you're with an adult, you would make chicken soup. It might make you feel better. So food is something we need, but it also something we can enjoy or that can make us feel better when we're sick. So how does food end up on our plates? Okay, we actually did a presentation at the Red Bank Library for the children's room called Where Food Comes From, and it is up on our Red Bank account YouTube site, so you can go back there and look at that if you're interested. But it talked about the basic, in more detail, the basic steps. And so before we eat, of course, food goes on a journey, and the major steps are shown here. So the farmer grows the fruits and vegetables and other crops that we eat, and to feed the animals that they raise also for milk, eggs, and meat. And so most food journeys begin on farms. And the next step is the food is either gets packed up and sent directly to market, like fruits and vegetables, or it gets processed. For example, that means that milk gets put into cartons, peanuts get turned into peanut butter, wheat gets turned into spaghetti or bread, apples get turned into applesauce. These are just a few of the foods that are grown on a farm that can then get made into foods that we eat and end up in the supermarket. After it's packed up or processed, food is sent to the stores where it is sold. And food can also be sold to restaurants, hotels, schools, school cafeterias, and of course to people like you and me. And I wonder if you've ever visited a farm or a place where food is processed. It's interesting if you can ever get to do it. So those of you who might have backyard gardens or might do gardening in school, you might have thought about what it takes to grow food, but think about it. What a plant needs to grow and what an animal needs to grow and live. And all living things, plants or animals, need sunlight and they need water. And they also need land. Plants draw nutrients from the soil to help them grow, and animals need land to live on, and also so that the farmer can grow food that the animals need. In the United States, we use a lot of our water and land for farming. We use almost 80% of our water, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. And 50%, half of our livable land, is used to grow our food and the animals we use for food. And animals need food to eat, like grass, wheat, and oats. And all food, whether it is a vegetable, a fruit, or an animal, takes hard work. It's a lot of resources that go into growing this food and raising these animals so that we can then have them to eat. And the dark portion of this pie graph is what 80% is. So this is just an infographic that talks about more ways that food is wasted. And you'll notice on the bottom that it's not all in one place. I mean, some is wasted on the farm when things aren't completely harvested from the field. And remember that. Some is wasted because it isn't properly stored, or it isn't processed well, or things get lost in processing. In transport on a truck or a plane or a train, things spill, things get spoiled. And then, of course, there's the food waste that takes place in our homes and in our lives. So end food waste, save wildlife. When we waste food, farmers need to grow more food. And this means they need more land. And then if they're taking this land, then the animals in the wild don't have as much land to live on or natural food to eat. And so think of your favorite animal, like squirrel, bear, or a deer, and about where that animal lives and how much land they might need to eat. And because of all this land we're using for agriculture, many animals are having a rough time, and they're in danger of becoming extinct, which means they won't be around anymore because there's not enough resources for them to feed themselves and stay alive. So when we waste food and throw out food we can eat or that is spoiled, farmers need more land, and that taking that land affects wildlife. So when we waste food, it also goes into a landfill. And rotting food in a landfill makes too much greenhouse gas. And this is also bad for the environment where the animals live. So it's another thing that makes their lives difficult. You probably I don't know how many of you thought about where food goes that you throw out, and most of the food goes into a landfill, almost 76% of it. And this is where they put garbage like food that you throw out. And we will talk more about that in just a minute. And we'll talk about the greenhouse gas and why it's bad for the environment and how it affects animals. But first, let's talk about how much we waste in our lives. So we actually waste 30 to 40%. That's like maybe almost close to half. And all of that most of that ends up in a landfill. And you think about it, when you spend money, there's a cost there. There's a cost in resources and in a farmer's effort, but there's also a cost in money. Food is not cheap. And when we get things that are dear, that cost money, we usually take pretty good care of them, like watches and bicycles and new cars and maybe smartphones and things. So it's not crazy to think that with all the resources and things that grow into growing food, maybe we need to think about treating it the same way. Maybe it's a good idea to be as careful with food as we are with other things that are important to us. So the food ends up in landfills, which will create a lot of greenhouse gases, and that is a problem. So the less we waste, the less goes into the landfills, the less greenhouse gases. And this is what 30% looks like. And of course, 40% is almost half. So as I said, 70% percent of food waste goes into landfills, 40 tons, 40 tons. That's every ton is 2,000 pounds. So that's, a lot of pounds every 20 seconds. And this is how many dump trucks it would take. And if we had to regrow that wasted food on one plot of land, it would be a farm the size of 3/4 of the size of California. That's a pretty big farm. So what happens to food when we throw it in the trash? As we said, it goes into landfills, and they give off something called methane. It's a greenhouse gas, and this gas ends up keeping heat in the Earth's atmosphere and makes the climate warmer. This leads to higher temperatures everywhere and something called global warming, and that causes many problems, for people and animals. These warmer temperatures change when food can be grown, because sometimes it's too warm for longer periods of time. Sometimes it's cold, for too long or too little. And, the cycle of life can go on because of the change in seasons and the warming of the climate. Um, it affects lakes and rivers that we get our water from. We need water, plants need water, animals need water. We all need water, and it affects the ability to get this water. Global warming affects the ability to get this water. Greenhouse gas makes trees sick also. And don't forget, a lot of fruit grows on trees, and there's a lot of pollination that takes place, and pollination is necessary for us to have all the food we grow. It can also cause smog and air pollution, which can make it harder for some people and animals to breathe. And it causes problems for wildlife, um, like elephants and gorillas and lions. And there are problems for other animals, especially those living in the Arctic, like polar bears. The warmer temperature melts the ice, which is part of where they live, and they're having difficulty, and they could become extinct. It's very likely that they might become extinct. And global warming can also cause mild winters. And when that happens, it doesn't kill off as many insects, which die from cold weather. And this causes more harm to trees. Also, polluted air hurts all land animals. We breathing it, the animals in the wild breathing it, our pets breathe it. It's not good for us. It harms all of us. So we're talking about all these things that food waste causes. And let's think about maybe making some changes that might help prevent some of the food waste, at least that comes from our daily lives. Some of the reasons we waste food, how we can waste less, and so what can we do about this? Well, we can't change things where food is grown or stored or processed, as we talked about the different journey that food takes, or when it's shipped to the store. So how can we change or slow this? It helps to look at why so much food and water we waste in our everyday lives. How much and why? And how about in your home? Some reason food gets wasted and thrown out because we don't like it, so we throw it out. We're too full for a snack, so we throw it out. And, all those things happen. We decide not to eat or don't have time to eat, so we throw it out. And maybe the food was cold or burned. And so and it didn't taste good, so we throw it out. Now think about what we could do differently to avoid this waste. And some examples could be a couple of things we can do is tell our parents and cafeteria workers if we don't like something, or they're giving us too much on our plate, and that's going to, some's going to get left over and be plate, what they call plate waste, and get thrown out. And that we can only take, we only want to take what we can eat. And we can only take what we can eat, and we can eat snacks less also, something to consider, or take a smaller snack. So what can we do with food instead of throwing it away? Well, we talked a little bit in the last slide about things you can do at school and your cafeteria, but also some ideas, which we're going to go over now, are save it, share it, compost it. And the most important thing we can do to fight food waste is not to waste it in the first place. So here are some things we could do. So to save it, you can put it away for later. You know, things that if you don't eat it all at one meal, or you eat less of your snack, don't throw it out, put it away and eat it later. Or you can, and don't forget to eat your leftovers. And you can also do things like put brown bananas in a smoothie or banana bread. You can use leftover vegetables chopped up in an omelet. I mean, there are all kinds of things you can do with leftovers, and try to use it in something else. And also, as I said, don't forget that you saved it. Otherwise, it's going to spoil and have to be thrown out and will end up in the landfill. And I mean, you can consider, do you like leftovers? Why? Or maybe why not? I mean, I like cold pizza. I don't know about all of you. And enjoying food later is a great way to fight food waste. You know, put a half a sandwich back into the refrigerator, things like that. Think about it before you throw it out, if you can maybe eat it later. And this is another infographic, which you can look more closely at when we post this program to YouTube, but it talks about a lot of different ways that you can avoid food waste in your home. So share it. Another thing to do besides throwing it away is share it. You can share food with a friend. And some schools have a share table where students can put unwanted food to share with others for free. Another way to share food is to donate it to places that help feed the hungry, like food banks or food kitchens. And we did talk about that in our presentation in November called Everyone Needs Help Sometimes, about food insecurity. And that's also up on our YouTube channel. And did you know that 1 in every 7 Americans doesn't have enough food to eat? They're food insecure. And most of those, or a lot of those, are children. So think about how you'd feel if you went to school on an empty stomach and you didn't have enough food to eat. So we can help each other out by sharing extra food. The other thing we can do is compost it. And those of you who have backyard gardens, who might work in a community garden or have a school garden, would probably know a little bit about composting. And instead of throwing things out, we can start a compost pile. And as the food in the compost pile breaks down, and sometimes you put worms in it too to help it break down faster, it becomes excellent fertilizer for gardens. And it also gives out a lot less greenhouse gas than a landfill. And here are some of the things. Not everything can be composted, but some of the things that can be composted are fruits and vegetables, eggshells, nutshells, tea bags, coffee grounds, and other things too. And you can certainly research this online or come to the library and we can find you a book about composting if you have a garden in the back. Or if you don't, you can make a compost pile and share it with your neighbors who do garden, because it's great fertilizer. And one more way to fight food waste is maybe to measure how much we eat, or to pay attention to how much we eat. This can help prevent food waste. Sometimes if you pay attention, you can change what you're doing. And, you know, if you know that you don't want as much food as you normally get, and you end up throwing it out, or you end up not eating it, or you bring a snack that's too big. So think about how you might pay attention to some of the ways you eat food and use some of the suggestions we made to try and waste less. So there are some cookbook authors out there who are addressing food waste by talking about cooking with leftovers and food scraps, Plant You, Scrappy Cooking, Cooking Scrappy, and Cooking with Scraps. And those are all available through our library. And they talk about taking radish tops and carrots and turning them into pesto. using wilting greens in smoothies. Let's see what else. Shrimp shell chowder, or pickle juice brined pork chops. Also, know that the water from canned beans behaves just like egg whites. So that's also something to consider. You don't want to throw that water out. It has nutrients in it from the beans, and it's also wasting water. So another way that we can address food waste is something called gleaning, which is the act of collecting excess fresh foods from farms, gardens, farmers markets, grocers, restaurants, state and county fairs, or any other sources in order to provide it to those in need. And whoops, sorry, there are a couple of organizations in our area, Move for Hunger, which actually helps people that are moving take the food out of the refrigerator and they donate it to, they connect it to places that need food, that either food banks or food soup kitchens and things. So rather than emptying your refrigerator and throwing stuff out when you're moving, this organization will take your food and donate it. There's also an organization called Share Food Shed Alliance, and it connects people with sources of locally grown produce and natural foods using community volunteers to glean foods from local fields. And that's what I mentioned to you about when farmers harvest, not everything ends up in the food chain. Some of it's left in the fields. So they glean foods from local fields, and rescuing healthy, fresh food that cannot be sold at market and getting it to people in need, or food banks or soup kitchens or pay what you can dinners. I mean, we do have Soul Kitchen, which is a pay what you can or work off your meal kind of an organization, and we have Lunch Break, which has a food bank and a soup kitchen. So, and then there's an organization called Food Recovery, which is a database that hooks all of these people all up together. So this is a little infographic from the USDA about planning ahead to prevent food waste, serving smart, paying attention to what's on your plate, loving your leftovers, and composting. So these are is an infographic that tells you 4 quick ways that you can prevent food waste. And just want to leave you with a few thoughts that food is valuable. It's a resource, and millions go without it, and a lot of them are children. And actually, there's enough food produced to feed everyone in the world if we didn't waste it. So it's just important to remember that and think about it. And when we throw out food, we don't just waste a meal. We waste all the water and energy and resources that went into producing it. So that's important to remember. And also, fighting food waste helps save water, land, and our planet. So hopefully you can do a little something to reduce the amount of food that is wasted. Our small choices can make big differences for our land, water, animals, and other people. So be a food waste warrior. Thanks, and hope to see you again soon.